New chat, new day. We get Zachery Butcher from Fidget Nerd. So do you prefer Zachery over Zach, or does it? I know some people prefer like the full length of their name. Others like
doesn't really matter to me, man.
All right, good. Zach, easier. I got to say, before we start anything, when I was a kid, I used to lie to everybody and tell them my name was Zach because I thought it was like the coolest name. And I found it was one of the only cool one syllable names you could get as a kid versus Sean, which was awful. So when I would meet someone new, I would lie and I would say my name was Zach because I just thought it was a cool,
and you've got the Sean that's about like scene.
Yeah, I know. And the funny thing about that, and this has nothing to do with fidgets, but so we're both Canadian, and when I was a kid, I grew up. So I'm from Ottawa, and I grew up in Orleans, and Orleans is kind of a French town or French sort of city inside of the larger city of Ottawa. And my parents wanted me to learn French. So in grade 1, they put me into a French school. So this was a full French school, and I was an English kid. And so, of course, coming in with my name, I was constantly called Scene because nobody could figure out in French how to pronounce Sean. So that was my first.
I made fun of a buddy at work. His last name is Murray, which is kind of like a first name too. But his first name's John, spelled Scene. So I always go up to other people and I'm like, "Have you seen Murray? Do you know where he is?" And he's like, "Dude."
You know what I loved when I was a kid was when all these kids learned the English rhyme of Sean the Leprechaun went to school with nothing on. Teacher said, "That's no fair. Give him back his underwear." And they were
brand new.
They really? Ah, dude.
You're going to have to write that down to me so I can tease more people at work with it.
Well, now it's on the video now too. So
yeah, I will go and memorize that later.
Okay, so enough of stuff with our names. People don't care about the teasing I got as a kid or that I went to French school. They're coming here to watch you, to see what you have to say. So
yeah,
let's.
One important thing. Do we have to sing the national anthem now, or is that at the end of the interview?
I'm doing it in my head now while thinking of Tim Hortons, and then I'm gonna go dig myself out of the igloo later because it's summer. So
ever since the Queen passed on, it's been so hard to keep up with the new regulations. I just can't.
Those are the new rules. Those are the new rules now. It's funny. When I interviewed Mel, I actually had a Tim's cup, and I didn't even think about it. And I thought,
I saw that, and I was like, oh yeah, look at that.
I was out, and I was like, oh, I better grab a coffee before we start. And I thought, oh yeah, this really is a stereotype. Yeah. So. Outside of being the fidget nerd and your extreme passion for wraps and other fidgets, of course, too, but primarily wraps, what is it you do? Like what do you do when you're not fidgeting? Like work-wise, career?
I'm basically just I'm a journeyman carpenter. Just building commercial buildings, basically. Right now I'm building a new Hyundai with the guys, So Hyundai dealership.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait a minute, you're building a car? But okay, so you're building a dealership. So actually that
no.
But that kind of ties into fidgeting in a way, because what you do, and actually maybe we'll touch on this after, but I find it interesting because you work with your hands then, and you're if you're a journeyman carpenter, you're always swinging tools. There's got to be points where you are damaging your hands in some way. And then
I try not to.
Have you ever had an incident though, or something work related that's prevented you from actually being able to use your fingers nimbly enough to fidget?
Oh yeah. I had to stop using like full strong inserts for a while because like sometimes you're hammering and you accidentally whack right there on your knuckle or something like that, and then you're trying to and you're just like I can't, right? It's just because those full strong inserts, like they're like a workout sometimes, right? Sometimes I give people, like I was letting my nieces and nephews like go through my wraps with the different like strength levels, and most of them could get to the second one or something like that, right? And I gave them the one with the strong, and they're like, It's like,
Really?
can't
And
even,
with the
then I
strong,
do it and they're like, wow.
so the
Right.
strong just meaning like the full size magnets, like the large magnets.
Yeah. You're putting
Those.
large magnets everywhere, all strong inserts. Right. Yeah.
So you know what? That actually, and we'll sort of, I'm kind of jumping ahead here for a second, but that's an interesting point then, that the Wrapped is actually maybe the only fidget that you can modify so much so that you were still able to use it even though you had an injury with your hand, which is pretty interesting because you can't say
Yes.
that about all fidgets, or most fidgets you couldn't
No,
say that with. There, you get what you get.
no. And I mean, there's I've talked to users on the channel. I actually have one guy who recently got a Wrapped, and he's going to talk to me soon because he got it and he didn't love it right away, right?
Right.
And I kind of said, like, that's normal, man. Believe it or not, when I first got my Wrapped, I had all these other Magnus fidgets and stuff, and I kind of got it, and I was like, that's pretty cool, pretty cool. And I picked up my Spider, Magnus or my Toad, and like started playing with that more. And it wasn't until I gave it a lot of time and got into it that I really started going, whoa, like what's going on here, right? This clearly better than I thought it was. So uh, one of his problems was he said that he had like a weak hand, like problems with his hand and stuff. And I said, oh my God, man, like you have to 100% don't sell it yet. Like, talk to me. If you go all medium magnets in that, either with a 3-click or a 2-click, it's easy mode all the way. And you're getting some
Right.
of the loudest and craziest haptic clicks with the medium. So.
And then did he change it?
Yeah.
Like, did he ever get back to you
Yeah,
on?
he hasn't had a chance to talk to me yet, but I imagine that yeah. And I've had in my videos on the channel, like the insert ones where I go over like every single insert. I think you've seen them.
Oh yeah.
They I think I mentioned, with people with the 2-click mediums and the 3-click mediums, that these are great for people with any sort of like hand issues and stuff like that. I have a buddy who works in the same trade, and he messed his hands up royally, just using sanders all the time at his job,
Okay.
and just the vibrations just like killed his hands. So if I give him one of my wraps with like a hybrid or strong in it, he's like, dude, this sucks. This is dumb. I can't even use this, right? But
Yeah.
then if I give him like another one, he's like, whoa, you can change it? You can make it so like now this is cool. I like this. And I'm like, right? There you go.
So with Fidget Nerd, now I did notice, which was kind of interesting. So the channel started in like July 2021. At least that's what it
Okay.
says on the about. But your videos only start, at least the current ones, only started 4 months ago. There's nothing else
Oh,
before
well,
that.
that's basically just because I had a channel where I was just my YouTube channel was basically just my music playlists, and I just swapped it over. It was just easier to just be like, oh, okay, because everyone, when they sign up for YouTube, they have that's their channel name and stuff like that.
Right.
So for me, it actually only started because I had all these videos I was making, like the insert things and all these like little clips and stuff, and then people were asking, questions about things, and I was like going through the group trying to find the video I made and all this stuff, right? So really, it kind of started because I just wanted somewhere to put everything. So I just took all the ones I had and I just like dumped it in there. And then I went, I should like, rename this. This doesn't make sense as this. So I just, Fidget Nerd, right? And it just evolved from there, really.
And so 4 months ago was that sort of when you started just the channel wise, like posting the videos? Like, has Fidget
That
Nerd
might
only
sound
really
about
been
right.
around for 4 months?
That might sound right, but like, Sean, like it's like crazy. Like, I don't know what it is about like fidget stuff, but if you told me that like, you know, like I look at dates sometimes when like a video is posted, like YouTube will tell me like, oh, that was this long ago or something. And I'll go, what? Like it just seems like it was so much longer
Yeah.
ago than that. And that totally leads into the fact that I think when you're fidgeting and when you're thinking about fidgets, talking about fidgets, at least me personally, I'm so zoned in that time just sort of like right? Like it just, everything slows down, right? In a good way. So yeah, I mean, if you
So,
told me dates, I'd be like, okay.
well, when did you? And the other thing I was going to say is that when the channel, like when your first videos, like the early videos, were not wrapped videos, a lot of them. I think there was one, the very first video you'd put up were inserts of a wrapped, but then it kind of went into different things. Or Compiform, there was, different stuff, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, I don't know, maybe about a month or 2 months after that, then it just locked in. Then it was like solid wrapped for a good chunk, and then you kind of came back out the other side of the wave, like,
Yeah.
and it started kind of bringing in new or different products again. We saw the microphone came in, right? So the microphone now being a feature where you've got this specific microphone sitting on your table for sound. So that kind of I guess we'll go back first to talk about just sort of the genesis of that. So when did a wrapped become kind of your primary focus, or your primary almost devotion or passion with sliders? Or was it there from the start, from the first day you posted the videos, and you just hadn't posted any wrapped videos?
I like to think, and I actually renamed the video that because I kind of realized it was what started it. So there is a video now, and it's basically just called the wrapped unboxing that like started the channel or something like that. And it's
Okay.
kind of what kicked off the whole idea. And I, I mean, really, it's kind of like Jonas is a little bit to blame for it because I remember when I did an unboxing video for my bronze Super Step Solid, and
Right.
I just thought this would be fun. It's fun to do an unboxing, and then I guess
Sure.
like I'll mess with it. So like I opened it up and I swapped the plates out from my first wrapped over to that one because the whole idea was that I wanted a super quiet wrapped. So when Jonas and I were talking about basically the science behind it, we're talking about how the heavier the body is, on the sides, the quieter it is, and the stronger the magnets are, the quieter they are, right?
Right.
So I went with bronze, heavy metal for the body, brass, heavy metal for the inserts, strong magnets all the way through. And then, but you're still getting a sound from the plate scraping. And then my plates from my first wrap were so broken in that they had the big, line all the way around them, right?
Right.
Where it was all worn down and you didn't have the machining lines making that sort of scraping. So in the video, I switched over to that because I was like, well, I have this even better idea to like, make it even quieter. And it worked. And it was like, there, cool, great. And then Jonas, after that, basically, he PM'd me. He was like, dude, I loved that video. It was so cool to see someone else besides me, cracking open a wrapped and like messing with it and like getting all the things right with it and like putting it back together and like basically having good information. So hearing that kind of made me go, oh, okay, this is fun and I love this thing. And so I started doing more. And after I got, because with that wrapped as well, I got the rest of the inserts, right? I talked to Jonas. I said, I want to fill up, I want to have one of every kind of insert. So all 14 that he offers, right? And my plan was if I have all of those, now I'm kind of in a position where I can, make a video about every one and
Right.
talk about it because it sort of stemmed from the fact that I wanted that info when I was buying a wrap. I was like, man, I want to know, right? And you're going around searching, and you've probably done the same thing. You're searching for some fidget video, right? You want to
Yeah.
buy a fidget, and you're like, yeah, but I just want to see that one side of it, or I just want to see inside it, or like how much does it weigh? Like how big is it really, right? And you're looking, you just can't find anything. You just want to see someone, like just someone do something with it. Show
Just
me
show
a
me.
little bit more, right?
Yeah.
Show me. Don't tell me. Don't write down a description. Show me, right? So I kind of went off that basis and went like, okay, I'm just gonna make some videos that I wanted to see.
We've talked before about the wrapped, and I think a lot of people, when I went to buy my first wrapped, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if I wanted it. I didn't know enough about it. And I ended up on your channel. And so I watched all the videos I could. And of course, the first one, which um, so many people I find struggle with in the beginning, is the magnets, right? And just you see so many videos of somebody taking off the cap, the magnets go flying, and you're like, holy shit, they flip. The polarization now is flipped on some of them, and then you try to put it back, you're like, wait, this isn't working well. And when you in the end, when you get it and it kind of locks in your brain and you sort of go, oh yeah, okay, then it's sort of easier, right? But building up to that, it's a very confusing moment. The biggest reason being because the magnet will stick to metal regardless of which side it's sticking on. And that's what throws people off, is because they do the set, they stick it to the, like they try to do the metal, they put the magnets on, they go, oh, okay, everything is fine. And then they put it together and they realize they're still reversed. So that plagued me when I first started it. It took me a bit to sort of clue in to go, oh, okay, wait, no, this is how you do it. And then you put out a video on that with the metal plates, right? And it was basically get yourself a metal plate. And that, like, I think that changed everything when I saw it, because you do need, I think it's when you become an expert at something, or just know a lot about something, you kind of forget what it's like as a beginner, right? And you forget that aha moment where somebody told you something, you go, oh shit, yeah, that's right. So when you made that video about just get a plate, just get a metal plate, and do this, and it is easy after that. But up until that point, and all that to say, like, just a lot of times I know a lot of the YouTubers I talk to, they don't really get the impact they have on something, because they just sort of go, well, I just made the video for myself, I just wanted to do it, I wanted to put it out there. But like, genuinely, like, that video helped people because it was such a clear moment for people to go, oh shit, here's how I deal with something that I'm actually now afraid of touching, so having that, just that simple video of saying, here's a metal plate, do this, was great. And I think it really did. And I mean, it sounds kind of silly to say, but I think it opened up a lot more people to wanting to use one and to being okay with using one, because then they went from just a user to a modifier, to somebody not afraid to open something up and play with it. So those videos have impact. Like, what you're doing is actually not just something you like to do, but it is helpful.
And that makes me feel good. It's great, right? And you're right. It's just, you just need someone to sit there and go, hey, look, guys, I messed up too, right?
Yeah.
It was weird, but like, look, it's easy. It's actually just like this, right? And it's like, right? So yeah, no, I did get that feedback a lot from that video. And when I had my first Magnus dimple, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna be so smart. Magnets are easy. One side with the thing, and then the other side with the thing, right? And I open up my Magnus dimple, and right, and like some of them are cracked, and I'm like, oh god, and I'm like, it's like 11 p.m. I'm like working the next day. Wife's like, are you gonna come to bed now? And I'm just like, the magnets are winning, and I need to figure it out. And I legitimately, I had to give up. I gave up. I was just like, I gotta go to bed now. Right? It's just like, I'm gonna tackle that later. It was so hard to just like leave it and be like, I can't believe that magnet polarity is messing with my brain right now, right? But then there was the click moment, and then
when you and I talked about wraps at one point, or on a few occasions, you were talking about how, to you, the wrap specifically tends to be more than just a fidget. Like, there is art inside of it. And what brought that up is because we were talking about just the money and the cost. And I think at one point I said, like, dude, how can you afford to get so many of these things? And you had said to me, well, but I don't have a lot of other expenses. And to me, this is also artwork, right? Like, this is me investing in what I feel is art in the wrap. And so there seems to be a definite personal connection for you with wraps that, like, to a lot of us, it's just a fidget, but to you, there is an actual connection. It seems like this is more than just a toy to you, right? Like, this is more than just a fidget. This is a passion. This is something that you actually seem to love.
It's Well, okay, so like I sent you that link right before we started, right, about introverts.
Right.
So,
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't seem like I'm an introvert, right? You know, I'm not shy, love people, you know, always, you know, presented as an extrovert, right? But it took me like years later to kind of realize, no, I think I'm kind of an introvert because my whole life I've needed like me time, alone time, like
Right.
recharge time, right? And it's funny because as an introvert who needs that time and where, you know, what's the saying? I I share in company what I learn in solitude.
Okay. That's a good
So
saying.
if I don't get that, like, you know, if I don't like fill up my me time juice tank, you know, I don't have anything to give, right? Socially. It's like that time needs to be charged up. And fidgets are like the instant link into like starting to fill up that tank, because for me it's not just, you can't just say, okay, you know, now everyone, you know, be quiet around me. I'm like having, you know, me time and stuff like that, right? It doesn't always work
Right.
that way, right? It's like, you know, even if someone's in the same room and they're like ignoring you or something like that, if you're like kids playing, you know, video games on the couch and you're like sitting at your desk or something, right? It can't always be the same thing sometimes, right? It's like you need to, for me, it's like I need to have some sort of focus that zones me in and really starts to get that flowing. So a lot of the time I call these dopamine machines, right? So I just think of fidgets that way, because extroverts get their dopamine from, you know, being with other people, and introverts don't get it the same way. They gotta go out alone there, play video games, you know, like do arts and crafts, you know, something alone to focus on and stuff like that. And I find that fidgets are like this instant, like, um they're almost like a Buddhist device, right? It's like this like instant, like you are in the moment right now. Look at this thing, right? Look at this
Right.
damn thing in your hand right now, right? Zone right in, right? And you're right there in the moment instantly, and then instantly that dopamine just like starts flowing. You're like, ah, oh, okay, there it is, right? So
So
I've said that
do you,
before to some people, but yeah, it's they're they're really like really important in my life.
well, so you know, and one thing, just to sort of comment on the whole introvert thing. I mean, my wife is an introvert as well. I'm more of an extrovert, but I think there's a misconception to a lot of people that introverts don't like other people, and that's not the case. It's just that introverts need time alone and would and prefer more of a one-on-one or one-on-two versus a one-on-10, or you know, like a large group. And it's a different energy that can get spent. Like my energy goes up when I'm around a lot of people, and I find, you know, that's where I get my energy from. And clearly that's
Yeah,
why I'm doing this. I like to talk to people. I like to have that. I have, you know, my wife always jokes, but it's kind of annoyed by the fact that I know everybody on our street. Like our neighbors, we have like 85-year-old neighbors across the street that are retired. I'm chatting with them all the time. I know everybody. We go into our grocery store, like in our, like the independent, and I know all the cashiers because I work from home during the day. And for
yeah,
my recharge, I am alone and I need to go out. So I go to the grocery store and I get a couple groceries. And I mean, this is like a
yeah,
Loblaws. This is a huge grocery store, but I go in there enough. I know the Starbucks ladies. I know the cashiers. I know, like, and I like that. I was the president of our of the community association, which is like the homeowners association or whatever in, you know, in the
yeah,
States.
yeah,
So I like people. Like I like being around that. But for an introvert, that's kind of a nightmare. Like the idea of having to spend your fuel and spread it out through
yeah,
everybody you meet and having to talk to everybody, because
yeah.
that's your drain. My drain is being alone. So I
You're
totally
like
get
my
that.
you're like my Dutch stepdad. He's like, my mom will joke that like Gary can find a Dutch person anywhere. Like he'll just go out, we'll just be out at the park, right? And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden he's found a Dutch person, right? And he's like bringing him over and they're best friends, right? And he's gonna like, you know, give him his number and like, you know, here's this like firewood I had left over my car kind of thing, right? And it's like, oh, this it's hilarious, right? But
My
yeah, I
son's
have a
nightmare. My son's nightmare is when we go snowboarding and we're on the chairlift, and if there's three people and a stranger sits beside us, like Griffin sits on the edge and I could just see his face and he's sitting and he's looking out to the side and he's like, Dad, don't. And I start talking to the person next to us. And it doesn't matter if they're a kid, if they're an adult, or if they're whatever. And we have a
yeah,
conversation and and I know he hates it. So I try to get Griffin into the conversation. I'm like, Griffin, you remember that time? He's like,
yeah,
yeah. And then he's just like, he's going to break his neck if he's just trying to look away. So, or I'll call, like, we're up the chairlift and I think it's one of these things where once you become a dad, you sort of become the world's dad, especially if you're an extrovert. And,
Yeah.
if we're snowboarding and I see people trying and they're learning for the first time, I'll stop and I'll say, like, did you want, do you want a bit of advice, just because it'll make it easier? And if they go, yeah, sure. And so if I show them something and then if we're up the chairlift and I see them coming down the hill, I'll shout out, I'm like, you're doing awesome. I'm like, good job. And Griff's like, Jesus Christ, Dad, shut up. They don't care. And I'm like, yeah, but it's great. But so that again, and I think that, it's funny.
The world needs people like you. That's the thing, right? It's a balance. The world needs people like you, and they need people like me.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. If they were all me, it'd be way too loud, and if they were all you, it'd be way too quiet. So this nice balance where we draw each other out.
When I discovered it, I had already had this sort of need to tinker and do little like fiddly things every once in a while, because I love my job. It's great. I love the people I work with, but a lot of the time we're just building structural concrete, right? We're just trying to stop this thing from falling down during an earthquake so everyone can get out, kind of thing, right? And like just, building a whole building. And it's like, it's not the most finessing thing in the world, right? It's like, yeah, you're getting everything right in the right place, but if you're sitting there going like, oh, it's a quarter out, should we mess with it? Be like, God, no, forget about it, right? Doesn't matter, right? It's like you're not working at that scale, But then having something where it's like, no, I can work now in the millimeter scale, or the, just like worrying about 16ths and stuff like that, and grab the caliper and measure stuff and just get everything just right. There's always been a need for that. So I have tinkered in other hobbies like leather work and stuff like that to do that kind of stuff. But I've also always had strange fascination with like weird looking metal objects. Like when I first started my carpentry apprenticeship, I used to work at the local pulp mill, and it was just such a crazy cool place to work. You're just there basically trying to stop this like 70-year-old mill from falling apart. So like you're the carpenters that are like situated in this mill full time, and then the people in the mill come be like, hey Paul, like my supervisor, seems that there's some concrete falling on people's heads over in this place, let's go take a look at it, right? And then it's like you're like, wow, that whole thing's going to need to be replaced, right? And then you're just like doing these weird jobs, just trying to fix everything. But at the same time, my eye is always getting drawn to like, what's that weird little bearing that someone left there that's just been sitting there? It looks like garbage. Like, what's that weird little thing? So I got into this habit of just like bringing home this like metal garbage to people. But to me, it was the coolest little, like these little chunks of like things and stuff. It'd be like, well, this little broke off this little lever from something, right? So when I figured out this fidget thing, I was like, are you kidding me? Cool little metal objects.
I can open these up.
Also do something and like give me dopamine. It was just like, right? So
I have to say, there is something when sometimes I look for an excuse to open one up, right? If I'm playing with something, and there is this mood that kind of comes over me for a minute when I put it down, I put it on the plate, I take my little torque screw and I set it, and I'm like, is this a T6? Is this a TA? And for a moment, like I spend my life in front of the computer. Like, so I'm a motion graphics designer, a 3D guy, all that stuff. So my life is the monitor. So when I can get tactile and all of a sudden I feel like I'm doing something important when I'm playing with these things, and you're right. It's the precision of taking something off, making little changes, and then putting it back together. There is something, and I can't really kind of put my finger on what it is exactly, but there is a mood that happens when you do this thing, because you're dealing with tiny little parts, but for the most part, other than if magnets go crazy, it can go back together, because you get to play with these little pieces. But it's not like I have behind me, I have a ton of like video games and stuff from the 70s and 80s, like all like the hand electronic games. And if something like that doesn't work, I take it apart. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I take it apart. And usually, like, if I can see something that's really obvious, like if it's a wire loose or something, I can put it back together and it works. But it's scary because I can
satisfying when you get it working, right?
Exactly.
Like, so satisfying.
Especially because someone sold it to me as broken for $5, and all it took was like taking the corrosion off of a battery post or something with like a Q-tip and isopropyl, and all of a sudden this whole thing works. But the thing about the fidgets, and with the Magnus, with the Wrapped, and even some of the other ones, the idea is you can take this apart, you can pretend to be, or at least I get to pretend to be like somebody that works in these little tiny things. And then I know I can go back together and I'm not going to screw it up. So there is something very, very freeing about that, but it's fun. It's almost like that's the playtime for an adult. Is there's the fidget, there's moving with it, but that's tactile and that's more a necessity. But the fun then becomes, oh, I get to be like a guy in a movie. I get to be somebody that's like opening up this tiny little thing and I'm taking out this cool little, like, what is this? So that's an added bonus to it. And I used to never take them apart. Like I used to be afraid of taking them apart. And now the minute I see one that looks scary to take apart, I force myself to take it apart. And I'll probably go on and I'll look to see if anyone else has done it yet. But I force myself to go through that exercise because I know that that's actually the other half of the fun. I find is taking them apart and putting them back together. And I think a lot of people are kind of missing out on that step because it's a completely different dopamine hit from not playing with it, but opening it up and tweaking and then putting it back together. So
that's honestly like the wrap is hands down like it's most customizable, like, from the outside in, like, period. Try to prove me wrong. You're never going to find a fidget more customizable to you than the wrapped. And it also lays into the fact that, like, fidgets like from CompuPerform and stuff, even though I freaking love CompuPerform, it's amazing, I end up playing with my CompuPerform stuff less just because
you can't open it.
They're sealed units, right? They're non-modular, right? So it's like they're great. They're like really good for annoying the wife because they're so loud and stuff like that, right? But it's like they're sealed, right? That's it. And that's the whole other side of it, is that there are people, they just want that, right?
Yeah. And
but then
like that's no mess.
No mess, no fuss. But that's the other thing that some people don't realize about the wrapped is that you can set it and forget it, right? It can be like, I like that, and it's done. Like, I mean, I did that for my dad's wrapped, right? I sealed that thing, I put it's blue Loctite. That thing's done, right? I didn't want to have that thing ever open up again on him, and it never will, right? Unless I want.
That is an interesting thing with that, actually, because as you said, I'm sure a lot of people do feel this way, is that there is the other side of the coin with, for example, a wrapped or anything that's something you can modify heavily. There is sometimes a stress to thinking, well, have I done enough? Have I modified enough? Should I still be modifying it? And that opposite piece sometimes of a CompuPerform or something where it's like, I can't do anything with this. I can only just fidget with it. So it is what it is. It's perfect. And it's, in the way it's built. I don't have to go, oh, maybe I should try different magnets. Maybe I should try different. Maybe it's the plates. It's just, it's done. Like even that middle ground of a Magnus where you can't customize it the way you can customize a wrapped, but you can still change up plates. You can buy your own magnets to change those up. So there's kind of like a halfway, right? Like that's almost like the entry into customization. And then the wrapped is like the end of the line and like the ultimate.
That's where I started with magnets. That's how I started tinkering, right? I was one of the guys that went out and bought N52 magnets, right? To strengthen over top of the N45s that come with magnets. And then, playing with tape and different sounds. And it got me realizing what a lot of people realize, that one of the magic of sliders and modifying is subtlety, and it broadens over all fidgets. It's subtle, right? If you're not someone that appreciates subtlety, like the subtle change when you change the shoes on your spinner or the bearing, and you hear like some slight different sound coming from it or something like that, and you're like, oh yeah, no, that's what I needed. Just that little change, right? Or then with a slider where you're like, no, I can feel it. I can feel that slight change from switching the magnets just in this way.
Or even when you use a different maneuver and you're all of a sudden your fingers do it differently and you're like, oh, that's cool. Like that's new.
Or even just different, like, because the thing is, like, people will always ask me, they'll say, I have this I have this wrapped and blah blah blah, and it doesn't matter what it's made out of, what insert should I do to make it feel like this? And I'm like, it partly matters what it's made out of. Or they'll say, I want it to be just like that one in your video where you're doing that thing. And I'm like, well, you know, you can do those inserts, but the material that it's made out of actually does have just a little bit to do with it, right?
Like there is
So
an effect on the feel and the sound and
there's
the
such subtleties, you know. There was a period where everyone was asking about the bronze Super Step Solid one I had, right? And they all wanted to like emulate the finish, or you know, emulate the like weird little squeaky, crunchy sounds that were coming from the, you know, way I had it set up and stuff. And I was like, guys, you know, like you know, the metal has deflected in a certain way over time from like playing with it so much, and the plates, it's like there's a lot going on here that it's just not gonna, you're not gonna be able to perfectly translate that, right? And that's frustrating to some people, but to me, that's even cooler because it's so much more individual, right? You have this wrapped like a Super Step Solid in one, you know, one metal that anyone could have, right? It's not one of those one of a kind ones, right? Like
right.
some of the ones I
You
have
can
with
just go
resin
buy it
inlay,
right
where
now.
it's like you're never going to get that cut of resin ever again. It's never going to look exactly like that ever again. It's like one of a kind. But like talking about ones that where it's like, you know, Jonas could pump out that same one, you know, over and over. And I bet you every single one over time, with its use and who's using it and how they're using it, they'll all end up sounding just a little bit different, behaving a little bit
Right.
different. So,
well, I remember when you showed me the inserts, the rubber inserts versus the foam, and then where you got that kind of the
yeah.
rattling, and
Oh, where
that
I sent it to you, didn't I? I was
you
like, no,
sent those
dude,
to me, you
don't.
gave them to me, and I put
Yeah,
them
because you
in,
were
and I
talking
was
about ordering shipping, and I was like, no, dude, I got extra.
yeah,
Here you go. You're in
and it was
Canada.
like, holy shit! It changed the whole feel of it, and I loved that rattle to it. Like it had such
Yeah,
a cool change from just like the
yeah,
snapping and the cracking. So
yeah.
that's the kind of stuff, and it's just the smallest thing, right? That
Mhm.
and it's really hard to explain to somebody. Like you can't really, unless people are in it, they're completely out. Like my wife, when I would try to show her something, I'm like, babe, like, do you hear that? Do you hear that? And she's like, yeah, I hear it. And I'm like, well, but that's cool. Like, and she goes, is it cool? Like you're 50 and this is, you know, you're freaking out over something sounding a little crunchy. And I go, but it's true, right? Somebody not in it. I
I
completely
know.
understand.
I literally just replied to someone on my channel because they said they're joking, right? I posted a short because I recently found a Sphera wrapped, one
Yes,
of
I
the
saw that. Yeah.
discontinued V1s, right? And like, you know, I wanted to make sure everyone knew you can't get it anymore, don't bug Jonas, right? So the title is just like it's never gonna be made ever again. But then someone was saying like, well, you know, thanks, man. My wife says I can't watch your shorts anymore because I spent all day looking for some rare grab sort of thing. And I'm like, oh, sorry about
Yeah.
that, dude. That sucks, right? And then he was talking about how, you know, something about like, you know, people being like, oh, why are you spending all your money on this? And I told him, I was just like, man, you know, you got to remember, right? Everyone has their thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's like some people, it's car parts. Some people, you know, they love like, you know, music gear, like my buddy, you know, baking all the time, making their own clothes, you know, leather working,
70s,
right?
80s
RC,
stuff.
yeah, collecting like weird
Yeah.
70s shit, you know, like RC cars, whatever, dude. Everyone has their thing. And just because our weird little niche is something that most people have never heard of and is not in the mainstream, does not mean that it isn't a great thing to responsibly spend your time and money on if it's making you happy, right?
Well,
It's like,
100%, 100%. And the fidget world makes even more sense than what I pay for some of my nostalgic shit back here because my stuff
right?
is
Like,
it's so my stuff is attached strictly to nostalgia because most of it is cheap plastic.
yeah,
So I completely understand. And the one thing though that um I keep learning as I move forward in this is um the fidgets are one of the only things that yes they cost a lot in relation to other things. They cost a lot. However, you can get almost exactly what you paid for it back, sometimes more depending on if it becomes a rare item, or even if it's a little less. It's almost like it's just a user fee. But you can, you know, like a wrapped,
yeah.
you you can sell a wrapped in a day. And the minute you buy it, if you spend whatever, like $350 US or something on it, you can still list it for that and people will pay for it, especially because as much as they say, well, I could buy a brand new one for that. And it's like, yeah, but you don't have to wait like 3 weeks or however long it's going to take Jonas to make it. So there is
especially if you're in Canada and you're living in boss mode for Fidgets, right? Like complete boss mode.
I just wanted to touch on the library basically that you're creating right now. I call it the library. I'm sure you have another name for it, but just the fact that you're collecting all like everybody's different configurations and that you're asking people, hey, post a pic, show me what you've got, and that you're building this. Would you call it a database? Like what is it? Like,
oh, the buyer's guide. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I was actually just working on the page for the inserts before we did this. Yeah, I basically I was just talking to Jonas about it and realized how much he must just sit there, because I remember I read in some post somewhere that he said that he mentioned that he spends about half of his day sitting on his phone, taking all the orders, talking to everyone, you know, copy pasting pictures that already exist, like on the, you know, the site or something like that, sending them that for examples, all that stuff. And then the other half of the day, actually machining things and like, you know, working on stuff. And I was thinking like, God, it's got to be like a easier way. Like if you just had some, you know, thing with some pictures, right? We're all so ADHD. Like I need to see it. Got to see the damn thing. You can't just tell me about it. I got to see it. What's it going to look like? Right. So I was like, it's got to be a thing where it's like show, don't tell, very minimal words. No one reads anyway. Right. And just, you know, this is what it looks like. Boom, 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 boom. Pictures. Right. So that's why I was looking for so many pictures. And I kind of presented that idea to him. I was like, what if you just had this thing and you could just like pin it to the site and stuff? He was like, that's like such a good idea. Like, if you want to do that, that would be like a massive help. And he's like, well, you don't have to do that. That's crazy. Right. And I was like, dude, like, you know, sometimes I'll sit there for way too long making a thumbnail for a video. Right. Like in my graphic thing, it's like, it's just calming and relaxing to me. Right. Just sitting there and like fiddling with like layout of stuff and like, you know, text and stuff like that. I was like, I'll just tittle away at it. Right. And just, you know, so yeah, but it's, he's approving the first 4 pages right now. And
so that'll be on his site, like on the store.
What's that?
That'll be like linked to his site. Like, will it just be a page on the?
I don't think. I mean, I can't speak for him, but I don't imagine that would ever be on the website because one of the reasons he doesn't say on the website anything besides the stainless steel ones.
Yeah,
it's because if he did, everyone would find that. And, you know, our little 3 or 4 week lead time for a wrapped would double or triple. Right. Because all of a sudden, no one has to go get on Facebook
and research,
search out a group, join a group, answer questions, make a post. What do I do? Who do I talk to? Right. Those little hoops to jump through drastically, you know, diminish the amount of people who really want one, who are really there, you know, for it kind of thing. So I imagine this will only be something that's pinned to the top of the Motorsports family group.
So I don't know if you're aware too, but in Facebook groups, there's a document section, like files, and you can actually upload files to that section that any group member can access. So that's one of the other things.
Because right now I'm working with the fact that Facebook will diminish any image that's more than 2048 pixels on one whatever side, right?
Yeah,
so right now we're dealing with, you know, 2048 by 2048 pictures. But what I do want to do eventually is make a massive PDF or something like that, where it's just all connected and you scroll through it like a big long infographic. But the problem is that if Facebook is going to diminish any of the quality on that,
right,
really there's so much information per page that you need to be able to like zoom in to it to like see a picture more close up and have it be the same quality as it is in the program that I am, you know, working with it.
So, and this gets into, again, this is kind of a nerdier part of this chat for a second, but one of the things to consider, and we'll talk about this later because I'm sure people may or may not care about the technicalities behind it, but one of the things you can always do, because maybe they're screaming this at the video right now though, is, for example, you or Jonas or anyone could just create a Gmail account for Wrapped, right? And you call the Gmail account the Wrapped, create the account, and then that gives you a Google Drive for free. And then what you can do is create like a PDF document that's massive, dump it into the Google Drive, and then you just share the link to that Google Drive folder instead in the pin to say, hey, if you want to go see the document, click here, go see it.
There's a lot of options that we haven't really gotten to yet, because now it's just about, let's just get a first draft out of all of them, right? And all that stuff, like resizing it, making it bigger, that's like the easy stuff later for me. It's the it's the layout, it's the finding all the pictures, it's like the, you know, the writing descriptions and all that stuff, and just making sure it's clear and understandable. That's what takes up the time. But like later, if it's like, okay, let's blow this image way the hell up, right, and like, you know, connect it to another one, it's like, okay, great, right? So this is just going to be a first draft. There's definitely going to be, you know, upgrades and changes, you know, as different materials become available or not available, right? So
I've noticed on the channel, and probably a lot of your viewers have noticed as well, is that we've started going into, like, there was a period where it was almost all Wrapped, and now it's kind of coming back into other products, right? Like other fidgets and stuff, which is nice to see, because again, I guess it's kind of at some point you don't want to, or maybe you do, but as a channel, you just become known as the Wrap channel. And I don't know if that's something that you're happy with, or you want to be known more as just, well, Fidgets. I love Fidgets, and I just happen to love the Wrap the most, but I love all Fidgets. So I guess the question is, are we going to continue seeing more like a diversification of products that are going to be on the page, or is this a blip and we're going to go back to the Wrap? Like, where is the channel going, and what do you want it to be, or do you even want it to be anything, or do you care? And is it more about just, listen, if I feel like doing something, I do it? Blah.
Sort of the latter. You're just going to see the stuff that I want to nerd out on, right? It's fidget nerd. And it's like the description. It just says fidgets are my hobby. I get really nerdy about them, right? So, you know, I'm going to go through phases. Like right now, like I got into spinners, right? So, you know, I've got all these spinners I want to find, right? And, you know, there's always going to be Wrap stuff, because it's like, you know, huge part of it, right? You know, I'm still acquiring, you know, more Wraps and still thinking about other Wraps that I want to have Jonas make, but it's slower now because it's like, you know, I really want to find that material where I'm like, that's the one. That's what I want as an inlay or something like that, right? Something that just calls to me, right? So
somebody mentioned on the group crystal. I don't know if you saw that
crystallized,
a crystal,
crystallized like titanium.
No, just a woman was wondering if it could be made out of crystal, because she uses crystals therapeutically, I guess, and so she was wondering, you know, can something be made out of like an inlay, a crystal inlay, like an actual crystal? And I think a few people answered, said probably not, just because of the way the inlays work and stuff. But it is kind of interesting, right? Like, you start thinking about all of these materials that you hadn't thought of before, and then you sort of go, well, you know, can he do crystal and then cover it in resin, or, you know, who knows where? Like, it's hard to know, like, what are Jonas's capabilities? Can he do more than just cut, right? Like, can he form inlays out of different
Jonas doesn't really have the time, I don't think, to be like actually making a material to then machine, right? So my thing is, like, if you want to like get an Etsy artist to make you some, you know, custom, you know, resin thing, or, you know, custom sort of any kind of material that you're thinking, I want to send that to them, then that's kind of the route to go, right? And that's something I've done before, like with the resin and stuff like that. And people do that with carbon, you know, fiber things for inlays and stuff. That's the route to go. And the general rule is, like, can it be machined? Then it can probably be an inlay, but it can't always be a body for a Wrap,
right?
Because sometimes just, you know, the hardness of it will make it too brittle, right? It needs a certain amount of give in a body to actually be able to, you know, take that. So inlays are a different thing. It's like, yeah, usually if it can be machined, it can probably be an inlay, but that is something that you would have to talk to the master wizard about to find out for sure.
Well, a lot of people think you're one of the wizards right now. You're one of the masters of this, because really, other than Jonas, I always sort of consider you as like the second person to ask, right? It's kind of like with Compiform, you've got Ivan and then you've got Pluke. So Ivan's the maker, but Pluke knows everything there is to know about Compiform products. So you're kind of the same with the Wrapped in the sense, like, not to say you're a silent partner or put anything weird on it, but there is a connection there where I think people are starting to think Wrapped first Jonas, and then, oh no, but I got to check out Zach. Like, I got to check out his page. I got to, like, you're almost the repository for the information. Jonas just makes them, and he's like, yeah, don't bug me. Ask Zach. Like, Zach knows.
So, ask Zach.
Yeah.
Ask him.
Ask Zach. Actually, there's a segment for you. That'll be a new theme for some of your videos. You should have like a little Ask Zach in his corner.
Yeah, I've thought about maybe doing live stuff before, but I don't know if, like, you're gonna do like a live stream kind of thing. It's like you and
only 3 people watch
him there.
I know. We're like, hey, I'm here. And you're like, oh, that's
hey,
not really
like, hey, I got
what I had in mind. All right, dude. Well, I think we'll wrap it up. I'll let you go on with your day. It is the weekend and stuff. So thanks like so much for giving me the time and to give anybody watching the time for you to do this. I'm sure there are a lot of people, the people that love watching your channel, hopefully are going to appreciate seeing this. And as I've been saying to everybody, is that I'd love to do a catch up down the road just to see where things are at. So sort of like a part 2 to the conversation. So again, thanks so much. And we will hopefully be, you and I will be chatting again, but for the video's sake, hope to see you again in another one of these.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
All right, bud.